Guys, happy Monday. Hope you all had a great weekend.
Yeah.
So, yes, let's enjoy the nice weather while we have it, because I know it's going to warm up sometime this week. Well, all right then. As always, we're just going to pick up where we left off. Last time we spoke a lot about generalization. So this is the client responding in different contexts in a very similar way. Now we're going to look at the opposite of that. We're going to look at discrimination. So first we have to ask ourselves, what is discrimination? And in the context of behavior analysis, this is not treating people unjustly based on characteristics such as race, sex, disabilities. It is not. No, it is not. It is not that. Instead, it is responding differently to the presence of different stimuli. You're treating things differently, but not in a way that's unjust. Because I remember I was telling a buddy of mine back when I was in RBT, oh, we just started working on discrimination training with a client. You know, it was a really young guy, so he needed to learn how to distinguish his colors. And he said, he looked at me, why are you teaching him to discriminate? So he probably thought that I was teaching the child to be racist or something along those lines, but it's not that, guys. It's not that. It is simply responding differently to the presence of one stimuli over another. And those two stimuli in question are the SDs and the S deltas, which we'll speak more on in just a moment. Yes, so the ultimate goal of discrimination training is to make sure that behavior happens when it's supposed to, and it doesn't happen when it's not supposed to. So we can take a quick look at what this typically looks like in the context of discrete trial training.
This video, we're going to go ahead and demonstrate discrimination training. Essentially, that's a client learning to discriminate between two or more ones. So in this case, we have a couple of examples. So go ahead and discriminate. Can you say D? D. Good job. Can you say two? Two. Good job. Can you point to the letter D? Good job. Can you point to the number 2? Good job. Can you say R? R. Good job. Can you say 6? 6. Good job. Can you point to the number 6? So this is the number 6, okay? Okay. Can you say 6? 6. Good job. Can you point to the letter R? Good job. Can you point to the number 6? Good job. High five. Can you say 4? 4. Good job. Can you say T? T. Good job. Can you point to the number 4? This is the number 4. Can you say 4? 4. Good job. Can you point to the letter T? Good job. Can you point to the number 4? Good job. High five. Oh, yeah.
Woohoo. So as you guys can see, what she was trying to do there is to have the learner distinguish between the 4 and the R, the D and the 6. This ability to discriminate between various items usually doesn't come naturally to the population we work with. So it has to be kind of made explicit so they're able to distinguish these things. And as we're going to see in just a bit, there are huge implications to their well-being if they're not able to properly discriminate. But before we get to that, let's address some of the key terms that we'll be going into. So we mentioned this one quite a handful of times, the discriminative stimulus, or the SD. You know, it's a big, scary word. I don't like to use it all that much. I simply think of it as, in the context of instruction, just simply as the request itself. So you can think of it as something that tells you that reinforcement is available. Oh, when this thing is around, if I respond to it correctly, then I get my reinforcements. Conversely, the stimulus delta, it's something that signals that reinforcement is not available. It's something that tells you, oh, if I respond in this way, then I won't get my reinforcement. And stimulus control is just the idea that behavior comes under the control of certain SDs or else deltas when reinforcement is either available or unavailable. So let's just take a look at a few classic examples, and then we can apply it more to our setting. A green light, I think it's a perfect analogy for what an SD is. When the light is not green, you don't move. So what would happen if you move forward in the road if the light is green or isn't green? James? Yes. Yes, thank you. Exactly. So when the light is green, that tells us that we have the reinforcement available to move forward, to go to our destination. And then the male's restroom sign tells us guys that reinforcement is available to, relieve ourselves. And if we don't see that sign, then it shows us that there is no reinforcement available. So it's only in the presence of this sign, and typically it's universal across wherever you go, that you can use the restroom. And then same thing with an open sign if you go to the grocery store. It's only when the grocery store's open sign is lit up where you can go in and have access to reinforcement, primarily buying the things you need. So those are all SDs. I like to think of it again. That green light that tells you you can go ahead and get reinforcements. It is available. The delta tells you that it is not available. So when the red light is on,
You stop.
yes, you stop. Because you try to act as though reinforcement is available, then you could end up in accidents. Same thing with the out of order sign in the restroom. Unfortunately, you cannot use the restroom if it's out of order. And then same thing with the closed sign in the store. You cannot go in at all. So there's no way for you to get the reinforcements, primarily getting things you need.
Stimulus. Yeah.
So yeah. Are you guys comfortable with those examples of SDs and S deltas?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So just applying it here, we can see that there are some common S deltas that the clients will interact with. And again, it's really important for them to be able to distinguish these things. So for one, when we provide them an instruction, let's say to transition to go to the restroom or to move on to the next activity, in the absence of that instruction, we hope that they don't act. Same thing when they can see you attending to another client. At that moment, they can recognize that reinforcement from you is not available. It's almost like there's this huge stop sign in front of you that the client would see that tells them, oh yeah, I cannot get attention right now because they're with this person. I mean, I just can look back at all of my, all the subtle interactions with Frank when I'm kind of talking to the other clients. Yeah, I can kind of hear you guys, hey, he sounds busy. He'll talk to you in a bit. So in that moment, you guys are kind of delivering an S delta to Frank. Yeah, same thing with materials are present. If it's time for arts and crafts or lack thereof, it's not time for it, then the materials won't be present. So it won't be reinforced. So easiest way to think about it is if the behavior cannot be reinforced at that moment and there's something indicating that it won't be rewarded, it is an S delta. Okay, we can kind of think about these more incidental, natural approaches to discrimination training here in the program. As you guys saw in the video, it was pretty, I would say, bare bones and kind of foundational with some of the discrimination training that we do with the younger guys. So you saw there, the learner was distinguishing or discriminating between letters and numbers. Doesn't get more bare bones than that. And then when I was doing it as an RBT, it was with colors and stop signs and those kinds of things. But I think with these are a little bit more relevant to what we're trying to do with the adult clients, since these are much more functional in purpose. So again, the bathroom one is a big one. Because an adult client who isn't able to distinguish between men's and women's restrooms can get in a lot of trouble. Same thing with being able to distinguish trash, regular rubbish from recycling. I know there are some clients at the care homes who like collecting recycling, and then they go out the weekend to do their own recycling, and they get their own little money for that. So that's good for them to do. Another big one is being able to identify their own belongings from those of their peers. Same thing with the names, that's a big one. And responding to their own schedule, not somebody else's. Kind of think of some instances where there might be a client who they see somebody else going on the outing, and they want to go on one too, despite not being able to recognize that it hasn't been their day yet. Okay, so there are a few instances of different discriminations that we can look at. So the first one is a simple discrimination because there's only one thing that they have to tell apart. There's only one stimulus that signals reinforcement or no reinforcement. So for instance, we can look at just a simple verbal instruction, hey, follow me. Or a peer greeting another client, them saying hi. That one interaction tells them that they can respond, that's an SD, boom, they can say hi back. So with simple discrimination, there is only one stimulus condition present, or one thing telling them that reinforcement is available. Now we can contrast this to conditional discrimination. This is where some more things have to be involved for them to be able to respond correctly. There is more information that is required. So let's say that client is learning to sort. Well, they have to not only respond to the correct item, but then they also have to be able to discriminate all the other ones in the array. Or let's say they need to use the restroom and they see multiple signs. They have to be able to discriminate all of them together and then be able to go to the correct restroom or the correct room. So conditional discrimination, there has to be more variables involved in order to respond correctly. Let's take a look at what that looks like.
Once a child has demonstrated an ability to consistently do a CDD style drill, and you remember sort of the information carrying unit drills from the earlier videos, and they've also shown that they've got quite good auditory discrimination developing, we can start doing some conditional matching receptor drills with our child. This is something that is really going to encourage the child to tune in and have to really listen to what we're saying, and it's going to really develop like a strong concentration from the child that's going to be useful in everything they do in life. So I'll start doing this with Sheldon by taking similar materials to something that I know she's mastered in a 2ICU situation. So if you remember, one of our 2 ICU scenarios from earlier were shapes and colors. So I have a red circle, a red square, a blue circle, and a blue square. And I'm going to take, in this case, the red square, place it in front of her, and then I'm going to take the blue circle and place it in front of her. Now, I have the red square in front of her, the blue circle in front of her, and in my hand, and for the entire token strip of this drill, I'm going to be using just this red circle, and it's going to look something like this. Shoulder, with red. Good work. Shoulder, put with circle. Very good. So what you can see I'm doing there is I'm going to, obviously this object matches both of these different objects in a different way, but Shoulder has to wait and see what I say before she can make that match in her own head. Now, you can make this as complicated as you want. If your child flies through this quickly, you can have it as you can use your vocabulary terms. So you can have them matching different colored animals, transport, or different sizes. I could say probably big versus probably square. So I could have a small object and a big object, or I could have two different category terms. But when you first start doing this with your child, make sure you're doing it with a set of materials that they've already done already been able to do quite well in a 2 ICU situation.
As you can see, it can get quite complicated, but it usually does start off with those simple discriminations, just one color to one color. But then, yeah, you saw that he had a red circle that could both match with the blue triangle. No, the red, yeah. What color was it? Yeah, it was red. It was a red triangle that can match with the blue triangle or the red circle. So that is a way that can be done in multiple ways. So then they really do have to listen to the correct answer to respond correctly. Okay, how do we go about implementing this step by step? Well, first of all, we have to both present the SD, and if we're at the point where we can implement a bit of conditional discrimination, multiple S deltas. We can kind of think of these as kind of distractor arrays. And I think at the time I was making this, there was a client from one of the care homes. He pretty much thought everybody, even complete strangers that I showed in stock photos, that they were all friends. And they were all part of his family, which is not something we can do if he wants to spend more time in the community and having this lesser supervision. So we have to address that. So when I was thinking of this individual, something that we would do would be to place a photo of his family member alongside some strangers. Probably just start off with one, and then probably include some others to make it a little bit more complicated. Yeah, but in that context, the photo of the family member is the SD. You can only get reinforcement from choosing that one, and he won't get any reinforcement for the S deltas. So then you give him the instruction, point to your brother. So straightforward enough, we give the instruction. The instruction in of itself is the SD as well. Because again, they will only point to their brother, ideally, after the instruction was delivered. Let's say that he got the correct answer. He pointed to his brother instead of some stranger, some stock photo model I found online. So then we deliver the reinforcements. Awesome work. That is your brother. Great job. However, what if he doesn't choose his brother? What if he says that stranger on the stock photo is his brother? Then we would provide no reinforcement because that stock photo of the individual is an S delta. No reinforcement can be delivered here. So then we would implement an error correction procedure. We would say, no, let's try that again. And then point to your brother. And ideally here, to ensure he gives the correct answer, we would prompt him. Here, it would be appropriate to implement a positional prompt or a gestural prompt, kind of pointing at the correct item. Yeah, then kind of just rinse and repeat until they're able to respond correctly to the SD. Okay, to address some common pitfalls that you may encounter when doing discrimination training. Oh, did I mess up? Did I mess up, guys? No? Everything's there? Okay. Positioning bias. This is when you do something like in the videos where it's discrete trials. You put all the items on the table. Let's say you're doing safety signs, and no matter what you do, the client keeps choosing the item on the right.
Right. Why is that on the right always?
Why would they do that?
Why should be on the right always? The
No.
client.
It shouldn't be on the right always.
Mm.
Yeah, we want to mix it up to see if they're actually responding to the correct answer, as opposed to, oh, they're just choosing right because it might be correct.
The client always pick the item on the right.
Yes, so we want to address that
Mm.
by mixing them together, or the next time we present them, putting in a different spot. Yeah, so that's how we would address that. Probably should include that. You know, just put a quick note to read. Yeah, we would address this by mixing the items afterwards to make sure that they're correctly responding to the SD. It wasn't too apparent in the videos I showed, but some of the ones we looked at earlier, they did represent the items in different places. If you think back to when we were doing the preference assessments, they always mix those things together just to make sure that the client is actually demonstrating what they prefer instead of just what's in the middle or on the right. Inadvertent prompting, clever Hans, accidentally providing the correct answer by looking at it, by attending it, to accidentally pointing at it. And the other thing too, yeah, lack of variability is key for discrimination to lead to generalization. Because if we're always choosing the same items, then we can kind of fall into what is referred to as faulty discrimination, where they only respond to a certain type of stimuli. Let's say it's only a certain type of bathroom sign, one that's a triangle, instead of one that's a square that you may encounter when you're out and about. Yeah, so the way you would solve this is just, yeah, adding just a little bit of variety here and there. Tips for best practice are things we typically go over. Deliver the clear SDs. Although if we're keeping in mind what we talked about last week, we want to train a little bit loosely to see if we can get away with varying our instruction. So instead of saying, point to your brother, you can say, where's your brother? Reinforce immediately and consistently. We know that's the best way to ensure that we're doing what we can to have behavior increase in likelihood in the future. Again, clever Hans of excellently prompting, yeah, being able to rotate all the materials and position them differently. So then we know they're not just choosing what's in the middle every single time. Follow error correction procedures, of course, and key thing is generalization. Yes, you cannot have proper discrimination training without generalization in mind. I want to leave off this part of it with this important quote. If the client only gets it with you in one spot, in one set of materials, then discrimination is not complete. There is something else we need. What is that one thing we would need?
Tablet. Yeah, okay. I'll tell you about it.
What do you guys think? What's the one thing we need to address this? This has occurred. Materials. Then what should we do? I'll give you a hint. We talked about it last time. And I don't think I included it in there. No guesses, Willie? We need generalization. Yes. Generalization is required. Because we can also run into the same problem. If there's too much generalization, let's say the client just sees a bathroom sign and says, oh, I can just go in there, then that will not end well. The things have been too generalized. They respond too commonly to stimuli. So in that case, we would need some discrimination training. Again, what we talked about last time, discrimination and generalization are just simply the two sides of the same coin. We need to respond to the world correctly. So that's something we want to keep in mind. Any questions before moving on to the questions I have for you guys?
Generalization is moving forward.
Yes, which we talked about last time. Train loosely and all that jazz. We're good to move on? All right. Let's do it, guys. Okay. Oh, bathroom. You're teaching a client to identify the men's restroom sign. When the client points to the men's sign, you provide praise. When the client points to the women's side, there is no reinforcement provided. In this scenario, what is the men's sign?
SB.
Hearing or B? That's right. S delta, discriminative stimulus. It's in its presence, we know to respond correctly, and in its absence, we know not to. Good. When a behavior occurs more often in the presence of an SD than its absence, we would say the behavior is under
Stay.
yes, stimulus control. And of course, stimulus control can happen in degrees, but typically when an SD is strong enough, then behavior reliably occurs in its presence. You can kind of think of some examples where as soon as the van may pull up, clients know exactly what time it is and what they have to do to get to their outing. Okay, what is the primary difference between the stimulus delta and the SD?
B. B.
Hearing all of these?
First one does reinforcement, the other one does not.
Yes. Yeah, with the SD, green light, you can get your reinforcement. You can go forward. S delta, red light, you should not go
Right,
forward
no.
because you're not going to get rewarded. Which of those following is an example of simple discrimination?
B.
Saki saying,
No, it's B, actually.
A.
B.
so I'm hearing B, I'm hearing A.
B.
Okay, let's see.
B. And B.
B.
It is B. Yes. So yeah, so exactly. Yeah. I can see why you guys thought B or A, actually. Yeah, because here they have to be able to discriminate between not just the blue and the red, but the instruction itself. And with C is more of an example of generalization where they have to be able to distinguish a peer from their mom to the neighbor. And then D, this is a classic example of necessary discrimination.
Simple discrimination.
Yeah, because if a client is responding in simple discrimination when it comes to greeting, good evening, for instance, then it has to actually be dark out. There is one client at one of the care homes, and she always says her one greeting is "Good morning." I never seen her once in the morning. I've always seen her probably the earliest at 3:30 when she gets home from her program, but that's it. But it's
Simple
always good morning, good
discrimination.
morning. Yeah, so for there, we have to kind of treat that as an S delta when the sun is not, or the time's not correct. Good. What is the primary purpose of discrimination training here at the day program?
Make sure the behavior only happens.
Okay,
Letter D.
D. Yes. Happens when it's supposed to happen, and it doesn't happen when it's not supposed to happen.
Yes, stop and go.
Exactly, stop and go. Yeah. Well, you gotta know when to stop and when to go. You gotta know when to zig and when to zag. Yeah, thank you. You see a client walk to grab their backpack when the clock says 2 p.m. If the client only goes to grabs their stuff when the clock says 2 p.m., then what is the clock acting as?
Reinforcer.
Reinforcer?
SD.
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 He's right.
Yes,
SD.
SD. It is not a reinforcer. A
Yeah, it's an
reinforcer
A.
in this case would be the client gets to go home.
Mm.
Yeah. It's only when the strikes 2 o'clock when they know that it is available for them to go. Last one. Client learns to say good evening when it's dark outside. When it is bright outside, the RBT does not reinforce the phrase good evening. In this case, the sunlight is acting as
S delta.
Yes.
yes, you guys got it. Oh,
The reverse.
awesome. Yes, it is an S delta.
Simple discrimination.
Saki, are you going to take the RBT exam?
I think now.
A few other steps we have to go through before that, but I think you got a good shot.
How many more trainings do I have to do?
And have to complete the 40 hours?
Yes, the 40 hours, and we're all almost there.
Yeah, we
Simple
can take
discrimination.
Take it out?
After that, we can ask
Yeah, we can.
Any questions?
the.
Yes, any questions, guys? Anybody else feel very confident about taking the RBT exam? Due time and due diligence, I guess we could do that.